Hi, this is Laura McHarrie at The Hidden Edge.
And this is Nigel Davey of SME Needs, and this is another one of our 10-Minute Business podcasts. Today we are talking with Arabella Redford. She's CEO of Brand Dot, a digital agency that understands the often complex challenges that brands face in e-commerce and helps them open up the doors to the digital economy.
Arabella, I'm so delighted that you joined us today for this podcast. I know you and the co-founder of Brand Dot through our mutual interest in public speaking. You have a wealth of experience that you bring to business and an extensive range of services to boot. For our audience, please tell us what you do that makes your business so different to other branding agencies.
Thanks, Laura. As you said, we work with a lot of e-commerce brands, both on and off Amazon, and we do cover all bases in terms of optimizing their online presence and helping them to launch and rank on the Amazon marketplace. But the main difference with us is that we're one of the very few agencies who focus on building voice apps for our clients, mainly Alexa skills and Google Actions. As you probably know, voice search has seen massive growth over lockdown. We now have about 200 million people who own smart speakers, 40% of whom have used them to make purchases. And if you're not tapping into that market, then you're leaving a lot of money on the table. We see a lot of parallels with the early days of the internet. At the moment, voice is still very embryonic, and no one's quite sure how it's going to evolve. But what we do see is a lot of potential for brands to leverage voice to drive sales and increase their customer engagement. So the way we often describe it to clients is it's a little bit like skating to where the puck is going to be, not to where it's already been.
Some really interesting information. I guess it might be useful to understand a bit more about how and why voice search works. And for our audience that may not know what Alexa skills or Google Actions are.
An Alexa skill is essentially a voice app for Amazon Alexa. You've also got Google Actions, which are voice apps for the Google Assistant range of smart speakers. The best way to describe a voice app is it's a little bit like a mobile app, but the interface is your smart speaker rather than your smartphone. And just like mobile apps, there's an enormous range of things you can do with a voice app, but what it comes down to is making sure potential customers can actually find you on voice. So voice apps might include things like podcasts, quizzes, information about your brand, ways for clients to interact with you, all the way up to more complicated things like being able to control all the smart devices in your home remotely. I think one of the driving forces behind the explosion of voice is that it's a frictionless form of communication. So it's much more natural than typing. And the other reason is that it's a form of communication that is accessible to everyone. A lot of elderly people, for example, won't be comfortable using a smartphone, but talking to a voice assistant is as easy as talking to another human being. And just from an efficiency standpoint, we speak about 5 times as quickly as we type. So it's just easier to ask your smart speaker rather than to type the same question on a keyboard. And with voice growing so fast, we see it becoming a little bit like the internet, insofar as brands are going to need to have a voice presence in the same way that they absolutely need to have a website.
That's fascinating stuff. I remember when Siri first came out and what terrible outcomes we got from asking them some key questions. Things have obviously moved on tremendously with voice recognition now, haven't they?
Absolutely, yeah.
From a brand perspective, can you give us some good examples of how organizations have used voice apps to enhance their customer engagement?
So a great example is the toothpaste brand Crest for Kids, who are really leveraging voice to drive consumer engagement. And if you haven't heard of it, what they built is an Alexa skill called Chompers, which is an interactive quiz that helps parents to get their children to brush their teeth. Now, I'm sure anyone who has kids can appreciate how challenging that can be. And this skill really takes the pain out of it. So it's got lots of engaging music. It reminds them to spend 15 seconds on each side. It keeps them entertained with quizzes, exactly the kind of content that kids love. Now, that's really ended up driving a lot of consumer engagement for Crest because it's linked to the Crest brand name. And on the podcast version of Chompers, they also cross-promote their products with ads. So although you can't yet use Alexa as a direct advertising channel, by using Alexa as an avenue to generate exposure, what Crest are doing is encouraging parents to then explore Chompers on other platforms. Just to give you a little taste of what the Chompers skill sounds like, I'll play it for you now.
Okay, getting the latest episode of Chompers.
Hey, you're here. Welcome to Chompers, your morning and night toothbrushing show. Start brushing on the top of your mouth on one side and make little circles with your brush around each tooth. 3, 2, 1, brush. This week is going to be snacktastic because it's Snacks Week on Chompers. And today we're giving you a quiz. Before we get to the quiz though, open your mouth, stick out your tongue, and say, ah. Do you see the little pink bumps on your tongue?
Alexa, stop.
Good. Now?
So as you can hear, it's a brilliant example of great user experience design. The music, the sound effects, the narration, everything is designed to engage the user from the moment they open it. And the key point to remember is that kids absolutely love smart speakers. So if you ask any parent, and they'll probably tell you that they have to limit the amount of time that their kids spend on their voice assistants. But if you think about it, in 15 to 20 years' time, those children will be grown up. And the average consumer will then be the one who's enormously engaged with voice. So when we talk about future-proofing your brand, this is what we mean.
Arabella, listeners with smaller businesses that won't have had what I would assume the budgets for this sort of thing, do you have examples of what you would recommend a smaller business might consider?
Absolutely. As you said, a lot of smaller businesses immediately assume voice will be out of their price range. But the reality is that just like a mobile app, the price point depends on what you want it to do. So if you want it to predict tomorrow's lottery numbers, then obviously you're going to need a higher budget. But for brands who are just looking for a simple, effective way for their customers to discover them on voice, most people are usually surprised by how affordable it can be. It's not just e-commerce brands, it's also businesses that need to be thinking about voice. So for example, we worked with influencers who have podcasts, but we also work with e-commerce brands who, so for example, they have a kitchen brand. That's all very interactive, so that's more around recipes, and they want to create unique recipes for how to make cocktails. Statistically, one of the most popular places in the home for voice assistants is the kitchen, because it's just a natural, you're cooking and you might say, Alexa, how do I make X or how do I make Y? So something that would be really interesting, so you had a kitchen brand, would be to think about creating a skill, maybe offering some really cool recipes. And we've also got things like quizzes, sort of fun facts. So say you had like a dog grooming brand, you might want to have some fun facts about dog breeds. And really, it's just an easy way for your customers and potential customers to interact with you. It all depends on what you want the voice app to do. Do you want to drive engagement, or do you want to actually use it as a sales channel? Really, the possibilities are endless. And the other thing to consider is that you obviously can't put a price on future-proofing your brand. Back in the early days of the internet, people were skeptical that anyone would ever use it for shopping. And of course, we don't hear from too many of those people now because they all went the way of the dinosaurs. And just like what happened in the early days of the internet, the people who get into voice now while the competition is low will be the ones who reap the rewards.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing your ideas with us, Arabella. It would be great if our listeners can make contact with you if needs be. How might they do that?
So anyone listening is welcome to contact me directly via LinkedIn at Arabella Redford, via email at arabella@brand. brand.digital or via our website at brand.digital. And just to avoid any confusion, that's BRANDDOT, digital.
Thank you very much, Arabella. And that's me, Nigel Davey from SME Needs.
And me, Laura McHarrie at The Hidden Edge. Please do make contact with any of us for sound business advice whenever you feel you need it. Oh, and please don't forget to comment on or like, follow and share this podcast.